Before this word reaches your heart, pause for a moment, like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon. This isn't just another message, it's a confirmation many have been waiting for, and it may be the one someone else needs too. There are people never meant to walk your path, yet effort is still poured into keeping them close. Peace has been requested, but it cannot dwell in places already marked for separation. The soul feels heavy not from lack of strength, but from disobedience. What was once tolerable has become toxic. The assignment was never to fix them, never to heal them, and certainly never to stay attached. The instruction was clear: don't touch them, don't love them, just leave. That heart, so tender, so willing to see the best, is being used against its own healing. Not every good intention is a godly one. What feels like love is often a chain. What looks like faithfulness may be fear in disguise. The request for blessing cannot be fulfilled when it is tied to what was meant to be released. Why ask for healing while returning to the very thing causing the wound? There was never a command to rescue, only to obey. And sometimes obedience requires departure, not because of failure, but because of preparation. The next season has no room for yesterday's attachments. Repeating cycles must break. Going back only shrinks the soul into who it used to be, not who it's being called to become. Stop mourning what heaven has already closed. Stop reaching for hands that no longer carry your future. Leave, not in anger, not in guilt, in alignment. Not all disconnection is loss. Sometimes it is divine protection. What is ahead demands clean hands and full surrender. Let go and make room. What's waiting will not come through the doors that were already closed for your protection. What once felt like alignment was only a lesson. Not every connection is meant to last. Some arrive to reveal what must be released. The presence of certain people was not a promise, but a test. And when the soul confused temporary comfort with eternal purpose, delay entered in. Not because of punishment, but because of protection. The longer the attachment remained, the more purpose was postponed. Many carry loyalty to what was only meant to be seasonal, but elevation requires separation. A heart cannot rise while holding hands with weight disguised as companionship. What felt familiar became a distraction. What looked supportive began to drain strength. It is dangerous to love what heaven never approved. Even more dangerous to build on what was meant to break. There is no peace where obedience is absent, and no breakthrough where disobedience is tolerated. The prayers for clarity have already been answered, but the response didn't match the desire. The truth was simple, but the heart wanted something softer. Yet what is gentle to the flesh may be violent to the spirit. There comes a time when mercy looks like removal, when grace looks like distance, and when love demands letting go. Not every hand held in one season was meant to walk into the next. Some were placed there to show the soul its blind spot, not to be brought into destiny. When divine silence falls after repeated warnings, it is not indifference. It is final instruction. The next level is too sacred to be shared with those who speak against the calling, even in subtle ways. Destiny cannot be negotiated. Purpose cannot be delayed for comfort. Release them. With peace. With honor. But release them. What is coming next cannot be birthed in the presence of divided loyalty. A double-minded heart cannot walk a straight path. Let go. The weight of disobedience is heavier than the pain of separation. The intention was pure. The desire to help, to heal, to stay. It came from a place of love. But not every heart that loves is aligned with heaven's assignment. Discernment was never meant to war against compassion, but when compassion overrides obedience, destruction follows. It is possible to be sincere and still be wrong, to feel peace for a moment and still walk outside of divine timing. Some connections felt spiritual, yet their fruit revealed confusion. The atmosphere shifted when they entered, not because of divine presence, but because of spiritual interference. What began as unity quickly became distraction. The soul, once focused, began to wander. Prayer became delayed. Clarity became clouded. That was no accident. The connection may have started with light, but it did not carry oil for the journey ahead. Emotional ties were mistaken for covenant. But not every soul tie is sacred. Some were forged in vulnerability, not destiny. When loneliness opens the door, anything that looks like peace can feel like a promise. Yet discernment must remain stronger than desire. The one who knows purpose must protect it, not out of fear, but out of holy responsibility. Heaven never asked for self-sacrifice in place of calling. The heart was never meant to bleed for what heaven never gave. Love is not proven through endurance of suffering caused by misalignment. True love flows in obedience, in peace, in order. When the soul cries out for release, it is not always weakness, sometimes it is wisdom. It is not betrayal to walk away from what was never blessed. It is not heartless to protect what heaven has planted. Let no one guilt the obedient. Let no one shame the one who chooses peace over chaos. The cost of keeping what was never meant to stay is far greater than the pain of goodbye. Release them. The heart may weep, but the spirit will finally breathe. There was a time when peace covered the room like a gentle wind. Clarity flowed. Prayer was natural. The presence of heaven felt near. But then they arrived, and slowly something shifted. Rest became unrest. Focus turned into fog. What once felt like sacred ground began to feel heavy, unexplainably burdened. This is the sign few recognize. When a person enters and peace leaves, alignment has been broken. Peace is not just a feeling. It is evidence of divine agreement. When it departs, the spirit is warning what the mind refuses to acknowledge. But comfort with chaos has made many call storms normal. They blame the enemy, not realizing they opened the door by embracing what heaven never sent. Peace does not require explanation. It simply exists where divine presence is honored. But where there is hidden motive, manipulation, or spiritual contradiction, peace withdraws. And yet many choose company over clarity, noise over stillness, survival over obedience. The longing to not be alone has convinced many to coexist with disorder. But when the spirit grows quiet, when joy no longer visits, when dreams turn heavy and direction feels lost, these are not coincidences. These are confirmations. Heaven never confuses. The soul was never created to host what carries spiritual conflict. Relationships are not harmless when they carry influence strong enough to shift atmospheres. Not every visitor is sent by light. Some come wrapped in sympathy, in understanding, in timing that seems perfect. But not every voice that sounds kind is aligned with truth. Test the fruit, judge the patterns, and above all, remember, peace does not lie. Return to stillness. Let go of who broke the flow. Peace is not a luxury, it is a signal, and where it is absent, heaven is sending a warning. Don't silence the alarm. Don't fight for what was meant to flee. Let them go, and let peace return. Some connections were never random. They were sent to drain, to distract, to delay. Not by accident, but by assignment. What looked like care was control. What felt like affection was manipulation. The soul didn't realize it at first, because the disguise was convincing. Words sounded comforting, but the fruit was exhaustion. Slowly, strength began to fade. Passion grew cold. Purpose slipped further out of reach. And all the while, the connection remained, smiling, affirming, but draining. This is how destiny gets delayed. Not through sudden collapse, but through slow erosion. The wrong person does not always come with violence. Sometimes they come with validation that keeps the soul dependent. They offer just enough attention to remain necessary, while slowly pulling life away from purpose. Every decision becomes second-guessed. Every moment of joy is followed by confusion. and still, they stay close. But no relationship should require self-erasure. No companionship should cost this much clarity. If peace has become rare and inner stillness has been replaced with unrest, there is no coincidence. There is only a spiritual truth being ignored. Some are not here to grow with you. They are here to keep you from growing. Let no one remain who makes obedience to heaven feel like betrayal. Let no presence remain that waters down conviction, that mocks consecration, that pulls your gaze away from where it was always meant to rest. The draining is not love. The draining is a warning. This is not about bitterness. This is about survival. There is a purpose that cannot be fulfilled while partnered with compromise. There is a future that will never be born while the soul is being siphoned in silence. The longer they stay, the dimmer the light becomes. Release the assignment. Break the agreement. Heaven has waited long enough. Strength will return the moment obedience is chosen, and when the draining ends, the rebuilding begins. Their affection was real, but it had conditions. The version of you they clung to was the one that didn't question, didn't grow, didn't discern. As long as silence remained, so did their comfort. As long as obedience to others overrode obedience to truth, peace was maintained. But the moment awareness awakened, distance appeared. Growth became a threat. Discernment became rebellion in their eyes. They loved the version of you that needed their approval, that stayed small, uncertain, dependent. But spiritual maturity demands separation from what prefers weakness over wisdom. When truth rises, deception begins to retreat, and with it, so do those aligned with comfort over calling. Some were never committed to your wholeness, only to your accessibility. And now, as strength grows and vision sharpens, hostility begins to replace harmony. But that's not failure. It's exposure. True alignment is never threatened by elevation. True connection celebrates clarity, not fears it. When a voice begins to accuse your transformation, take notice. Not all discomfort is betrayal. Sometimes it is divine pruning. There is no need to apologize for growing. No guilt is required for following truth. When heaven begins to reveal who doesn't belong in the next season, resistance is natural, but obedience is non-negotiable. It is not cruelty to walk forward without the ones who clung to your past. It is mercy, for them and for you. Do not remain in rooms where growth is punished. Do not stay small, so others can feel big. The version of you they preferred has passed. Honor the lesson, but protect the transformation. You weren't created to live in the shadows of who you used to be. Let the new you rise, even if it walks alone. Just because something feels familiar doesn't make it holy. Repetition creates comfort, even when it's rooted in dysfunction. Patterns become invisible when lived in long enough. But spiritual blindness often hides beneath routine. What the heart calls home may be the very place suffocating destiny. Familiar voices that speak against progress. Familiar hands that pull when movement begins. Familiar surroundings where compromise is justified. All of it becomes a cage, not made of metal, but of memories. And still, many stay. Not because they are at peace, but because they fear what life looks like without the ones who made stagnation feel normal. Safety is not in the known. Safety is in the aligned. There is no refuge in circles where discernment is mocked. No shelter in patterns that rob the soul of hunger for righteousness. It is dangerous to confuse history with destiny. What has always been is not always what should continue. The familiar may speak softly, but carry the weight of resistance. The familiar may look harmless, yet drain vision, dull prayer, distort truth. Not because of outward rebellion, but because of subtle control, wrapped in expectations never placed by heaven. The need to please, to stay loyal, to not disrupt, all while purpose withers in the corner. Let go of what only feels safe because it's known. Let go of voices that anchor instead of uplift. Let go of environments that celebrate who you used to be, but cannot receive who you're becoming. Growth cannot survive where peace is conditional. What feels secure may be the greatest spiritual threat. True safety is found in obedience. And if that means walking away from the familiar, so be it. There is no promise in comfort, only in calling. Step forward, even if everything in you wants to turn back. The familiar is no longer your home. The prayer is for peace, for stillness, for clarity. Yet hands remain tightly wrapped around what keeps the soul in conflict. Words declare surrender, but actions cling to confusion. There is a difference between wanting peace and being willing to make room for it. Peace does not visit where war is protected. Some conflicts are not circumstantial. They are chosen. The fight continues, not because there is no way out, but because the heart won't release what feeds the unrest. Peace was never designed to coexist with chaos. Yet many build altars in broken places, begging for heaven to bless what was never holy. The enemy of peace is not always the obvious storm. Sometimes it is the tolerated tie, the lingering connection, the secret compromise, the delay in obedience. These are the wars that rage silently, keeping the soul unsettled while lips cry for relief. But peace does not answer to pleading. It responds to alignment. Surrender is not a feeling. It is a decision. It means walking away from conversations that reopen wounds, turning from relationships that stir confusion, laying down habits that disturb the spirit. The invitation to peace remains open, but it cannot enter until space is cleared. Stop entertaining what has already been revealed. Stop negotiating with what steals rest. Peace is a byproduct of obedience, not emotional relief, and no amount of prayer will produce what rebellion keeps locked. If peace is the desire, let obedience be the response. There can be no stillness while hands are full of what heaven commanded to release. Let go of the war. Let go of the fight to keep what causes unrest. The peace asked for is already near, but it cannot dwell in divided places. Not every connection comes from the Creator. Some were placed in your path with one purpose: delay. Not to destroy in obvious ways, but to distract just enough. To keep your focus slightly off course. To keep your time consumed. To keep your spirit entangled in cycles of overthinking, apologizing, questioning, and shrinking. They didn't look like enemies. They came with flattery. They praised what they never truly supported. Their presence felt good at first, even needed. But time revealed the pattern. Always pulling, always draining, never sharpening. Moments of progress followed by confusion. Conviction watered down by their opinion. Fire slowly fading in the name of false peace. Some delays come dressed as loyalty, some wear the mask of understanding. But if their influence keeps you from prayer, from purpose, from clarity, they were not sent to lift, but to linger, to hold the soul in place long enough to miss what was coming next. That is not alignment, that is interference. There is a cost to keeping what slows the spirit. There is a price for entertaining what dulls discernment, and heaven will never authorize delay in the name of politeness. Discernment is not cruelty. Distance is not hate. Sometimes love looks like walking away from what was only meant to last one chapter. Release what causes hesitation. What once felt like companionship has now become a weight. The longer it's held, the heavier it grows. And there are assignments waiting on the other side of obedience. Assignments that require all of you, not what's left after you pour into what drains. This is the moment to choose acceleration over attachment, alignment over familiarity, obedience over emotion. What delays you now may deny you later. Let go and move. The signs were never subtle. Restlessness in the spirit, repeated patterns of confusion, dreams turned dim, the voice within whispering, warning, pleading. But it was easier to hope for change than to confront the truth. Easier to pray for transformation than to walk in separation. And so the signs were overlooked. The soul learned to adapt to what was meant to be escaped. Hope became a mask for disobedience. Faith was twisted into excuse. But heaven never asked for endurance in places of decay, never required long suffering in relationships built on compromise. Change was not delayed because of timing, it was delayed because of attachment. The refusal to release what was clearly draining became the very thing that blocked the blessing being prayed for. There is danger in calling delay process. There is loss in labeling dysfunction as loyalty. The voice of truth will never stop speaking, but the heart that refuses to listen grows numb, and numbness becomes the soil where regret takes root. The signs were given not to bring fear, but to offer mercy, to give space to act before consequence arrives. Every ignored prompting added weight. Every delayed decision hardened what was once soft. But grace still calls, and when truth is finally faced, peace returns. Clarity has never been the problem. Courage has. Not the courage to hear, but the courage to let go, to walk away without every answer, to trust that obedience is safer than control, that freedom may feel like loss at first, but it never returns void. Let the signs speak. Let the Spirit lead. No more delaying what's already been confirmed. The warning wasn't a threat, it was a rescue. And the longer you wait, the further the cost. Release what heaven already told you to leave. What waits on the other side is not punishment, it's peace. Affirmation felt constant, but only when performance was present. The applause came not for identity, but for effort. They celebrated what was done, not who was becoming. The moment output slowed, so did their loyalty. The moment boundaries appeared, so did their distance. This is the danger of being surrounded by those who attach to usefulness, not purpose, who embrace the hand, but not the heart, who stay close to the gift, but never honor the weight of the calling. In their presence, love always feels earned. Worth always feels fragile. Silence becomes punishment, and loyalty is conditional. But heaven never designed relationships to be transactions. Love was never meant to be currency. When worth depends on what can be produced, the soul slowly begins to disappear. And purpose cannot thrive in places where presence alone is never enough. The truth is hard, but freeing. They loved the version that served them, not the one being formed by heaven. And now, as alignment deepens and calling awakens, their grip weakens. Not because of wrongdoing, but because they were never truly connected to the real assignment, only the convenience of it. Let peace settle where pressure once lived. Let discernment replace desperation. Release the need to convince those who only see value in your function. The oil was never for their approval. The calling does not require their validation, and the soul does not need to bleed to remain accepted. You are not the sum of what you give. You are not loved because of what you build, say, or solve. The ones assigned by heaven will see what cannot be earned, and they will stay, not because of need, but because of alignment. Let the rest fall away. The weight of pleasing the wrong audience is too heavy for the road ahead. It didn't end the way it was hoped. No closure, no understanding, no explanation that made it easier to let go. Just silence, distance, and pain that whispered of rejection. But what felt like abandonment was actually mercy in disguise. What was perceived as punishment was in fact protection. Separation was never the curse, it was the cure. Sometimes heaven removes what the heart refuses to release, not out of cruelty, but out of urgency. When calling is too precious, when timing is too critical, and when compromise becomes too familiar, the break must come, not to destroy, but to realign. Separation arrives when delays begin to cost too much. It wasn't personal, it was prophetic. The path required clarity, and clarity could not exist while that presence remained. Conversations would have led to confusion. Closure would have created another excuse to stay. So the break was silent, sharp, and sudden. Because the next season could not wait for feelings to catch up to obedience. Stop calling what was divine a betrayal. Stop labeling what was sacred timing as failure. The exit was holy. The absence was a signal. The empty space they left was always meant to be filled with purpose, not pain. The grieving is real, but let it lead to gratitude. The weight that left made room for the weight of glory that's ahead. What departed could not carry what's coming. What walked away could not stand under what will rise. And what ended wasn't the story, only the chapter. Let the separation do its work. Let the silence become sacred. There's more waiting, but it starts with release. Forgive what didn't stay. Bless what couldn't grow. And honor the separation that saved your soul. What is coming cannot be carried with arms full of yesterday. The future demands space. The next level does not wait for divided focus, and purpose will never sit beside compromise. There is a reason old things began to fall away. Not everything falling apart is failure. Sometimes it's preparation. Elevation is not about more. It's about less. Less attachment to opinions, less tolerance for delay, less room for noise. The climb is steep, and the weight of the unnecessary will cause collapse, if not released in time. Many have asked for breakthrough, but refuse to release what blocks the way. Many cry out for clarity, but keep entertaining confusion. And yet, the answer remains the same. Empty your hands. Gifts cannot be unwrapped while holding on to what no longer serves the season. Destiny cannot be gripped while fists stay closed around disappointment. The higher places are not reached by force, but by surrender. The cost of elevation is not pain, it's purity. And what once felt necessary now feels like distraction. That's not loss, that's discernment growing. Let go of what the spirit no longer feels peace carrying. Let go of people who speak well, but walk opposite of where you're going. Let go of habits that dilute your hunger. Let go of ideas of success that never came from heaven in the first place. This is the season of alignment. And alignment always begins with release. Not everything painful is punishment. Not everything you want is worthy of where you're going. Elevation demands empty hands, because only then can they be filled with what lasts. Release, not out of fear, but out of faith. What is coming weighs more than what left. Be ready to carry it. This wasn't a breakup. This was a breakthrough. What was called the end was really the beginning. The door didn't close to hurt, it closed to free. What walked away didn't take your worth. What ended didn't stop your future. The moment obedience stepped in, the atmosphere shifted. What felt like emptiness is becoming preparation. What looked like isolation is being revealed as divine intimacy. The silence was not abandonment, it was alignment. No longer pulled in two directions, no longer negotiating purpose to maintain company. The noise faded, and the stillness arrived. And in the stillness, the voice of truth grew louder than ever before. The pain of letting go is real, but so is the peace that follows. The soul that once ached now breathes. The heart that once broke now hears. The heaviness that lingered is lifting, and where sorrow used to live, clarity is moving in. No more second-guessing. No more replaying conversations that don't matter in eternity. No more waiting for closure from people who were never meant to hold your future. The release has already taken place in the spirit. Now walk in it, in the natural. Speak it, live it, protect it. This is not the end. This is a sacred beginning. A path that could never unfold while tethered to what was never designed to last. A future that demands your full attention, full obedience, full surrender. What's ahead carries weight, but it also carries reward. Do not look back. Don't mourn what was rescued from. Don't regret the steps that led to freedom. You are not who you were when this began. You are clearer. You are stronger. You are ready. Let the door stay closed. Let the past stay buried and step boldly into what was always waiting on the other side of obedience.